conversation. Good morning, Congressman Carter.
Hey, good morning, OT and Nicole. How are you guys doing?
Good morning.
We were just talking about the CNBC report that just came out, extremely alarming, and the title is "The Unemployment Rate of Black Men Rose," underscoring the continued inequality in the labor market. And you and I have had these conversations about black men and their position or not having a position in our society today, and it just underscores the drastic increase. And when you compare black males to their other male counterparts, Hispanic, Asian, and white, the disparity has grown by 25%. That's alarming.
And that's a fact. And when you talk about the disparities that are out there, we have to continue to bring home the fact that while we can talk about a robust economy and we can talk about things getting better and we can talk about recession slowing, we have to drill down into every segment of our community. Because if it doesn't impact every segment, we still have much work to be done. And so I applaud you guys for having this discussion, because the reality for anyone is, what does it mean to me and my family? Mm-hmm. What does it mean when I look at any of those reports, be they good or bad? What does it mean at my kitchen table? Mm-hmm. And that's where we as Democrats have to really zero in, and we have to force our Republican brothers and sisters to see as well that our battle, be it federal, state, or local, is to get to the kitchen tables of the people that are here. Everyone's concerned, and we know that young African-American men have been the target of much, from police brutality to unemployment and underemployment. The battle is real, and the struggle is real.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. But happy Mardi Gras to you, Congressman. And thank you for weighing in on that piece. We'll have a more in-depth discussion about it. At some other point, we'll bring in some of our labor experts to talk about it. But what is Mardi Gras to Algiers, homeboy? What is this, Congressman? What is Mardi?
And the West Bank had a nice parade yesterday.
Yeah, what does Mardi Gras mean to you?
Mardi Gras in Algiers, for this boy from the cutoff, is a time when family comes out for Namtok, man. When we come out to see the Indians do their thing, and Tyrone Casby, and the King and Queen of Namtok, to get down and to demonstrate the culture of our city and of our people. And the Indians in Algiers and the Namtok parade, rolling down General Meyer. These are things that, as a child, I can remember. My sister was in the when you twirl the batons, majorettes, and we would go jump and see the parade at 3 or 4 different spots. Once my sister passed, we ran to another part of the Algiers to see her run again, and we'd do it. And it was a big family affair. And all these years later, it's still a big family affair. It's a little bit more intimate than the big parades downtown, and they are wonderful as well. But it's a little more intimate. It's an African-American led parade. It's beautiful with all of its majesty, led by incredible leaders and incredible members. And Mardi Gras is a time to come together, and you catch your trinkets and throw your trinkets and all that, but it's really a family reunion. You know, people get out along the parade routes. Everybody, as you see, particularly in the Algiers parades, because the community is so small. And, of course, we share it with our brothers and sisters on the East Bank. We love to have y'all come and enjoy it with us.
Well, I was fortunate enough to be the Grand Marshal of Namtok a few years ago, And I tell folk all the time, Namtok is different, right? Because you'll see a lot of individual couples, single revelers along other parade routes. But at Namtok, it is mostly families combined, right? People who have traditional locations who've been there for decades. And you're right, Congressman. It seems like everybody seems to know each other when you go to a Namtok parade.
And it's so nice because this is one of the oldest African American parades anywhere, organizations, and it's made of incredible individuals who do more than just party at Mardi Gras time. I'm a proud member of NAMTAG, very proud of Jim Henderson, our president and chairman, who makes it a point of giving back. We do back to school supply giveaways. We do neighborhood night out against crime. We provide resources for young people in the community. Much like Zulu, I'm a member of Zulu, much like many of the other groups, it's important to note that people only see the partying side of Mardi Gras. Yeah. But these organizations do incredible work 365 days a year, and it really sells them cheap to only talk about what happens at Mardi Gras. So, again, thank you, O.T. and Nicole, for giving us an opportunity to highlight these groups, to talk about the fun of Mardi Gras, and talk about what they do during this great season as we lead into the Lenten season, but to also give an opportunity to tip our hats to them for the great work they do 365 days a year.
In many of your briefs, you've highlighted, and when you talk about New Orleans culture and our festivities, you talk about the level of diversity. But, the WBOK and Equity Media have been honoring and talking about the history of Mardi Gras, which wasn't always so diverse. It wasn't always integrated. The late Dorothy Mae Taylor and her fight to get to what we see now is what we talk about is a diverse Mardi Gras. That was a long time in coming.
And if you think about that, that was in our lifetime.
And it wasn't that long ago. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're right.
It was my lifetime.
Great, honorable Dorothy Mae Taylor, who O.T. and I had an opportunity to learn under, to study under, to see, and every day as a real person, a leader. This is the PhD in policy and statesmanship and government and leadership and community service that O.T. and I enjoyed working under the greats like Dorothy Mae Taylor, who had the courage to stand up to the big boys, if you will, with Washington Mardi Gras and say, no, we're not going to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. We're not going to do this anymore. We're going to do this differently. And as a result of that, we have a more integrated Mardi Gras season and parading organizations. Now, some, as you remember, O.T. was so offended by it, they said, well,
we're not going to parade anymore. Yeah.
They stopped parading.
We have to integrate.
Yeah, Dorothy Mae Taylor, she's one of the iconic figures of New Orleans when you talk about Louisiana. Yeah. When you talk about Black history.
America.
Yeah. Right, of America. Yeah. Okay. And it's Black History Month, and so we want to make sure that we honor folks like Dorothy Mae Taylor
before we move
Aretha Castle Haley
to Black History Month. We all know NAMTAG is one of your favorites. What are some of the other must-see parades or events that our congressman enjoys?
Look, you got to do Zulu. You got to get out there in the morning. I know it's tough. I know sometimes it's cold and rainy. And O.T. and I stood next to each other in the cold rain, getting our coconuts, and it's well worth it. You can be back home in your PJs, but you got to go out and experience Zulu and the revelry that comes with it. And I'll tell you, hard to beat the Roy Glapion Lundi Gras.
Oh.
You gotta get out.
That thing is wonderful now.
The Roy Glapion Lundi Gras.
Yeah, that thing is wonderful.
It don't get much better than that. You get out and you talk about a family affair with knowing everybody and music and food and merriment. If you haven't gone out to see and do the Lundi Gras, then you got to do it. Now, here's my all-time favorite. Mm-hmm. You got to get to Orleans and Broad, and you got to see the Indians.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a beauty in motion. You want to talk about some of the most talented individuals ever want to see, both in culture, dance, and tapestry. The new suit that begins the day after Mardi Gras and is painfully and carefully and tactfully put together for the next year are beautiful suits with beautiful arts and the talent of our people to be able to create these, but then to also display them with all of the cultural fanfare on Mardi Gras morning is a sight that you must not miss, and you will never get enough of.
Well, we got to go to break, but you're right. I still remember Lil Walter's natural Mardi Gras Indian outfit all time, my cousin Big Chief Rudy Bokash. Big Chief over in Algiers, Casby, unbelievable. So those are memorable. Look, that and a whole lot more. And we're going to segue into Black History Month, man, and why it's important to our Congressman. Right here on WBOK, 12:30 a.m. after the break.
Mardi Gras is here, and NOLA Public Schools wants its scholars to have a safe and joyful carnival season. They're calling on families, neighbors, and the entire community to be the village their students need. If you see something, say something. Our youth need guidance, assistance, and compassion. Scholars, take care of each other and be kind. If you're struggling, it's okay to not be okay. Reach out to a trusted individual. Enjoy the festivities, but remember the golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated. From the NOLA PS family to yours, have a safe and happy Mardi Gras.
At University Medical Center, you'll see the most specialized specialists. When it comes to maintaining your health, it all starts with primary care. The primary care providers at University Medical Center are experts in getting you well and keeping you healthy. From annual checkups to managing conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, and asthma, make this your healthiest year yet. Visit umcno.org/primary care to learn more.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK 12:30 a.m.
We're back 37 minutes past the top of the hour. Conversations with our Congressman. Congressman, it's Mardi Gras here, but it's we got our month. It's Black History Month everywhere now. Right? So making history every day.
Absolutely. You know, people say it's Black History Month, man. No. It's Black History Month to just use this month to amplify what we should be doing 365 days a year. Talking about the accomplishments of African Americans, reminding our young people of the greatness of their heritage and from whence they came, to talk about the inventions and talk about the contributions of African Americans. But we sell ourselves cheap if we only do it during the month of February. Mm-hmm. So I remind our young people and our not so young people that while February is set aside to highlight, it is not the start and end. Right. It is just the peak. We should talk about constantly and everywhere we go, and I know you do too, OT, because I've seen you in the classrooms and I've seen you in the churches. We have to constantly remind people not only of the history, but we have to constantly remind them of their responsibility to build the future. Mm-hmm. Your responsibility is to remember Dr. King's dream, but then have your own. Right. Your responsibility is to talk about Rosa Parks sitting down, but then your turn to stand up. It's important for us to talk about Fannie Lou Hamer being sick and tired of being sick and tired, but now we have to be sick and tired of being sick and tired, and we have to do something about it. And oh, by the way, we got to start learning to love each other. You want to talk about the greatest gift of Black history? Love each other. Forgive each other. Stop cannibalizing each other. Stop talking about each other. Stop saying bad things and being envious of each other. Lift each other up. That's the message for 2024. Lift each other up. Embrace each other. Forgive each other and find a way to get going back. That's when we're going to really change the paradigm of our community. That's when we're really going to turn things around. And oh, by the way, those that would have us continue to be divisive, they throw rocks and hide their hands.
Yeah, all the time.
Congressman, many of your Zulu brothers, they're chiming in, they're listening, they're texting, and they reminded me of the Zulu parade. There was one iconic figure that you could always recognize by a T in the C. If there was a hat that if you were looking for this person, right, especially if you were on the coconut list or the bloom list, look for the T and the C. And when you saw the T and the C, you did that for decades.
I did that forever, man. That's right.
To talk about the impact of the T and the C, and also your brothers from Algiers said that though Roy Glapion was one of the reason for the Renaissance, and the fact that Zulu was stabilized and grow, that it's the George Rainey Lundi Gras Festival. So, and
that's exactly right, and I stand corrected. Yeah. And I, as I said it, I was waiting to get back in. We named the hall after Roy Glapion, my dear friend and Zulu brother and former seatmate on the city council.
And one of your Algerian,
and my cousin and dear friend, George Rainey. Yeah. Two iconic figures of our lifetime, and two brothers that were very, very close friends. George Rainey and Roy Glapion, two incredible leaders in our community, and certainly icons within the Zulu organization.
And one of your Algiers neighbors, Dorian Rawls, is the chairman of that event now, that has grown to the point where it rivals any festival or activity in this city right now. It's unbelievable the amount of people. So
and Oscar Rainey,
yes,
in true form, created the Algiers Mardi Gras Festival on the riverfront, which is fastly growing as one of our most popular festivals in New Orleans as well.
And so Nicole's looking at me. The Congressman created his own Zulu / Mardi Gras character for people who know. TC.
So let me tell you.
Yeah, TC.
So does TC still ride?
I would ride every year, and of course we're in makeup and mask and wig and all. That it's hard to tell your people where you're going to be.
Right. Right.
So I would as best I could tell them my positioning on the float.
Right.
But even then I'd say look for the baseball cap with TC.
Look for TC.
Okay.
And for years on top of years on top of years, that was my absolute.
That was it.
Okay. That was the
signature. And people would look for the TC.
That's right.
And then people in the audience got hip to it. You know, they start.
Oh, so everybody
know me. Start screaming TC, TC.
All along the route. That's right.
It's like I know all y'all don't know about TC.
That's absolutely.
But they do now.
No. Look, after years that it became a staple, right? Where the Congressman and the TC had people specifically went to the route. So I always wondered how we had enough, right? Because more and more people, and people would tell
you
people.
You marvel me, man, with your memory of these things.
Yeah. well, you know, there's some value in having been around, and I think you know, you show that. I had a conversation with Clancy Dubose the other night. You know, we lost Eddie Saper.
Lost a great leader, man, a great leader.
Clancy called to talk to me about my letter to the governor that you and I talked about, and he talked about you and how, in many cases, that institutional knowledge and that sense of history has. And let me pay you a compliment, Congressman. Clancy said that Troy has done such a good job in understanding people that even if it wasn't a majority district, he's the kind of person that works hard to represent everybody. And I think that only comes from a sense of history, the bumps and the bruises, and the appreciation for people, Congressman. That's a rare quality these days in politics.
Well, I appreciate that. Look, we're all product of our successes and our failures. We're a product of the people that we've been blessed to have along the route, people that have given us wisdom and guidance, people that we've had an opportunity to learn from, good, bad, and other. And we're the product of mistakes made and maturity gained. None of us are perfect. We're all work in progress. Mm-hmm. And as I often say, it's a blessing and a pleasure to serve. Mm-hmm. And having served with some of the greats in our community has given us the opportunity.
Part of Black history. So a Black history question. So do you still have that hat?
I still, believe it or not, I have that hat with all of the makeup and.
Still on it.
My wife has tried to throw it away a few times.
No. No. That's
gone
in the museum.
No.
That's gone. I
guarantee
throw this
hat away.
That's gone in the museum, Papa. Look, we're gonna take a break, And when we come back, I'm sure everybody's figured out who TC is now. And if you're listening to the radio, if you saw that hat, that's who it was. Our illustrious Congressman. So when we come back, Nicole will take us into some of these other issues, Twice Efficiency Act, and a whole lot. We are back at Conversations with our Congressman. Yeah, we got to put that TC hat in the Mardi Gras Museum Hall of Fame. And I'm actually being serious because it was one of those notables, right? And especially with our congressman, that was a signature. That was a signature.
And you have to have the plaque with the writing, the story behind it.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to go in and read that paragraph of description of the hat.
Look for the initial.
See, when I get back to Louisiana this weekend, I'm gonna take a picture of that hat and send it to you, because I absolutely still have it and you can see it's been worn for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't let your wife throw it away. You need to tell her the story about it, though.
Now, after you have memorialized it on the show, she will understand the significance.
And you know what? When it is in the museum, you gotta take the sound bite of talking about this and make a play button underneath the hat at the museum so that you could hear it live and read it and see the hat. That's gonna make an experience. I'm all about immersive experiences.
And no doubt about it.
So we got to get this voice. We got to get this sound bite from you talking about it just now.
That's a part of when we talk about Black history. That's a part of us creating our own new Black history and reminding our young people that there's plenty of paths for them to create new history. There's plenty of paths for them to make their cut. So for generations to come, people were talking about their contributions. Mm-hmm. You know, I recently told the Legislative Black Caucus, with them now facing a super majority of the Republican Party in both the House, Senate, and the governor's mansion. I challenge them lovingly that although you may not have the vote, you still have your voice. You gotta challenge these things that are going to be counterproductive for the African American community, for the LGBTQ community, for women, for minorities. Yeah. You got to use your voice. And I reminded them, although you are outnumbered, I reminded them of this, but then there was one. It was Dutch Morial, the only African-American member of the Louisiana legislature. And he didn't just fold in and say, woe is me, I only have a vote. He used his voice, and he made a difference. And then we had Dorothy Mae Taylor, then we had Sidney Bartholomew, and then it went on and on. We had Nick Connor, we had Louis Charbonnet, we had Tom Jasper.
Avery Alexander.
Avery Alexander. You know, even though you're outnumbered by the vote, use your voice. Mm-hmm. That's Black history. That's demonstrating that we will not just let you do what you want to do simply because you can. I sat in an impeachment hearing last week against Secretary Mayorkas. One of my colleagues said, Congressman Carter, there's nothing you guys can do. We are going to impeach Mayorkas no matter what. And I said, why? Simply because you have the votes? No, we have a voice, and we're going to stop you. And you know what we did 2 nights ago? We stopped them.
Wow.
We have a voice. We have a vote. And you have to remember that even when you're outnumbered, use your voice. Mm-hmm. And I want to pay kudos to you, OT, for asking what I believe to be the tough questions. We applaud the governor for wanting to come into New Orleans to help with the crime situation, but there has to be rules of engagement on how that's done. There has to be the hierarchy and who reports to who. Mm-hmm. We know that the charter is very clear. The charter is very clear that there shall be one law enforcement police department in the city of New Orleans, and it shall be New Orleans Police Department. Mm-hmm. So while we embrace the help, it has to be done with proper governance and proper authority, and we want to make sure that, as LT said, that we have constitutional policing and arrest, and we don't have we want to catch the criminals, absolutely, but in doing so, we don't want to trample people's rights.
No doubt about it. We don't want to trample people's rights. You're absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm. And we want everyone to feel safe.
Right. So what is the Twice Act?
The TWIC Efficiency Act.
The TWIC Efficiency. What is that?
So the Twice Act is Transportation Workers Identification Credential. It's a card that's required to work with people who are working in security or transportation or in critical infrastructure, those areas that require a little bit more background, a little bit more security features. So what this does is individuals that are coming out of jail, that have paid their debt to society, they can apply for a TWIC card before they get out, meaning they can go through the process and start applying for these TWIC cards, which will give them an opportunity to, when they get out of jail, they're ready to go to work. When they've been recently incarcerated, they get to go to work. Now, to be clear, this does not automatically grant that they would be approved. They still have to go through the same rigors of background check to determine if they're fit, if they're qualified, if they're capable of doing the work that the TWIC card allows them to do. But what it does is it gives them a head start on getting ready for the workforce. Remember, we know the magic of 72 hours. We know the great work that 72 Plus does. But it's not just a catchy name. The 72 Plus denotes there's something that has to happen for a recently incarcerated person in the first 72 hours of being released, or else they might find themselves back into a life of crime back in prison. Mm-hmm. So in that first 72 hours, so they have to have a job. They have to have a place to live. They have to have someone that will embrace them and help them to reindoctrinate themselves into society. So what this does, the Twice Act, while they're still incarcerated, they can go through the process, be vetted, and when they walk out, should they meet all the qualifications, that's important, should they meet all the qualifications, they got a TWIC card and they can go to work, because in the maritime industry, we have a huge amount of shortages of people power. Mm-hmm. Now, here's this. This is a bipartisan bill because Republicans and Democrats alike recognize this changes lives. If you really want to end recidivism, you really want to get people on the track to being productive citizens again, give them an opportunity to earn a decent living. Don't turn them back on the streets and deny them an opportunity to restart themselves after they have paid their debt to society. If you really want a better community and you want to stop people in the drain and the pipeline back to prison, give people an opportunity to be properly trained and get a job.
So Congressman Carter, for the TWIC card, is this something that's going to be covered by the state for people who are currently incarcerated that are looking to get out?
No, what do you mean when you say covered? What do you mean?
Any fees or anything associated with it?
No, you don't. When you apply, there's a process, and they start. Now, the state doesn't pay anything. There's no fee associated with for the state. Mm-hmm. When you apply, they just start the process of doing the background check and the likes. And this gives them an opportunity to have a head start, if you will, in getting the process done.
Nice. And what other? I know that there's a whole lot of things happening in Washington. Let us know about some other things happening that you're working on, because we know that you are away from your favorite season of the year, but you're doing some great work in Washington.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, in Washington, it's just another Tuesday.
Yeah.
The Louisiana will be having a blast, and all the revelry. We will be back in session. Unfortunately, I won't be able to have my TC hat on in Zulu. I won't be able to catch or throw or hand or get a coconut this season, because we will be once again voting in the nation's capital to try to secure a permanent budget to make sure that we have funding for the things that are essential for the American society and safety. So, but we the other night I mentioned there was a vote on the floor to pass funding for just Israel, but it had no money in the budget for humanitarian efforts in Gaza to provide for Ukraine, to provide for our brothers and sisters that are dying senselessly in the streets of the Middle East. And there was nothing for the border. So it was another trick of MAGA Republicans to bifurcate and to separate the budget, as opposed to coming one that dealt with all of our national and international interest. So Democrats stood firm, along with some Republicans, in fact, to push back and say, we're not going to let former president, now underscore former president Donald Trump, dictate what happens in our foreign policy or what happens in our domestic policy.
Right.
And Washington we have to turn the lights on and call these things out. This was nothing more than a game of lies. We're making great gains on pushing back against Putin and his dictatorship in Ukraine. And all of a sudden, Trump says, no, you slow it down because Ukraine is doing too well.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing there. We got to go, Congressman Carter. We got to hit this hard break. But thank you for the work that you're doing over in D.C. and making sure that people understand what is going on.
Now, Congressman, are you coming back after the break, or is this a hard stop for you?
I could actually stay on for another 8 minutes if you got time for me.
Oh, yeah, we got that. Yeah, let's do that.
Hey, we just look stupid. We ain't going to let you go, man. We don't have to. We're going to take this break here. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversations with Congressman Troy Carter after the break. WBOK, 12:30 a.m.
WBOK 1230 AM New Orleans. Home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools New Orleans.
I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Former Fox News host Tucker Carlson's 2-hour interview with Russian President Vladimir Putin will be out today. The interview will be released on Carlson's website and X profile at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It will mark the first interview Putin has given to a Western journalist since the invasion of Ukraine almost 2 years ago. Nationally recognized civil rights attorney Ben Crump is now representing a Texas woman who was shot by police. The victim, Ebony Pouncey, was crawling through her friend's apartment window near Houston when they got locked out. A neighbor called 911 thinking it was a break-in. Harris County deputies opened fire on Pouncey when she approached the door with a gun. The African-American attorney's team says she had not threatened anyone. It was in her hand for protection. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
New Schools for New Orleans wants to take the opportunity to honor and celebrate Black History Month. During this month and year-round, we want to honor the resilience, achievements, and contributions of the Black community throughout history and today. Our schools are committed to implementing and teaching inclusive and accurate social studies curriculum. Because of this, every student is able to see themselves reflected in the stories that shape our world. Let us continue to ensure that the lessons of Black history inspire us all to strive for a better tomorrow.
This hour of the Good Morning Show is brought to you by the University Medical Center.
Good morning, wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK 1230 AM.
It is the Good Morning Show. WBOK 1230 AM. Nicole Collins, OT, Congressman Carter staying on longer. You know what? You got to get off and get to work, and I appreciate you for staying on a little longer. Now. Well, this is good work. This is work, letting us know what's going on. But thank you for being able to stay longer with us to work.
Now, so.
What was that?
Absolutely. I said we got a little window of opportunity to stay a little longer this morning. I always enjoy being with you guys because this is a time when we can have unbridled discussions, unfiltered discussions about what's important in our community. And I am so grateful to both of you and to Equity Media and WBOK for providing this forum. More people across the country and certainly in our community should tune in every single day to take advantage of this opportunity to hear, to speak, to learn, to be a part of what's going on in our community because information is power. And WBOK provides information.
Congressman, we honor two iconic figures in their own right here today. They're the services for the late Victor Verney, outstanding basketball player at Holy Cross and Xavier, and, of course, someone you and I came to love and know and have a relationship with, Dan Packer. So I know how close Dan was to us with the work that we did in his position as the first African-American president of Entergy in New Orleans, Congressman.
And one of the most genuine people you'll ever meet.
Wonderful man.
One of the most genuine people you'll ever meet. And bless Vern and his contributions, and his family and the great work that he did, opening doors for many other athletes to come behind. Dan Packer is someone that we worked very closely with, and we didn't always agree with. We were regulators, so we challenged the company, and we called them out on things that we thought they were wrong in. But Dan was always someone that understood and came to the table, and albeit sometimes we had different roles to play, he never forgot about the importance of our community. He never forgot about the importance, although he was at the top of the corporate ladder. You can still talk to Dan on a Friday night at the Zulu Club, or to have lunch or dinner or breakfast with him, or to see him in many of his philanthropic endeavors where he used the resources of his Fortune 500 company to reach into the community to make a difference in people's lives. Dan Packer was a gentleman among giants. He was a man that not only talked about it, but he lived it. When you look at who started working out in the plant, who became the president of the organization, but never forgot the brothers and sisters in the plant, never forgot the individuals that he worked with the linemen and the people that are out in hurricanes and those bucket trucks, keeping our lights on right after the storm or in the midst of a storm. We owe a great debt of gratitude to this great New Orleanian, this great humanitarian, this great leader who, after leaving Entergy, continued to work with the Port of New Orleans, with the Aviation Board, with Zulu, with various nonprofits. He never stopped giving back. He's an example of what I talked about earlier in Black History Month, when we talk about all those freedom fighters that we talked about 50, 60 years ago. We have freedom fighters right amongst us now that we should be talking about. And our young people that are out there listening, create your history. Be the next Dan Packer. Be the next Jim Singleton. Be the next Dutch Morial. Be the next Sidney Bartholomew. Be the next Don Hubbards. Be the next Jerome Smiths. These people, be the next Barbara Majors. People that are living in our community right now that you can still touch and feel. Take advantage of it.
Beautifully said. And I know that what you're doing, you're also speaking and living the things that you are saying. And before we went to break, I know that you were getting into the historic things that you were doing over in D.C. because we know that chaos is happening. And since we do have a little bit more time with you, can you just kind of go into more of what's going on and the things that you're fighting for in D.C.?
Well, we're fighting to make sure that we have adequate funding. We know that we have a war going on multiple fronts. We know that in the Middle East, we're dealing with Israel and Hamas, and our prayers and our actions are for a two-state solution, one that will have peace, so we can end the senseless killing of our brothers and sisters who are dying on either side of the equation. We know that as recent as just a few days ago, we had an American citizen, Miss Ishmael, from New Orleans, who was abducted by the IDF. We don't know the details on that, but we're working with the State Department to try and find out what's going on and fight for this U.S. citizen to be released and to get to the bottom of what those issues are. We are still seeking questions. We know that we have people dying in Gaza from not only the atrocities of war, but also no water, no food, no humanitarian efforts. We have to make sure that we are stepping in the gap, providing resources, and not allow this continued death of innocent women and children in hospitals. And so the funding that the MAGA Republicans sought to deny is one that we have to keep fighting to provide. We also saw a senseless attack on Secretary Mayorkas of Homeland Security simply because Republicans said we can, without due process, without an opportunity to defend, without evidence. The Constitution is very clear, and the framers of the Constitution also made it very clear that you shall not impeach someone for a simple disagreement in policy or even in their performance. It must be treason, high crimes and misdemeanor, bribery. Secretary Marcus has done none of the above. And this is where we have to call out those who would disgrace our democracy, disgrace our Constitution, and challenge the very democracy that we have. And all of these things, yes, are black history. Why? Because African Americans are playing a major role in defending the rights of Americans across the country. We have 60 members of the Congressional Black Caucus. I'm proud to be the vice chair, proud to have the Democratic caucus led by Hakeem Jeffries, who will be the first African American of either party to lead a major party and will be the first African American Speaker of the House in just a few short months. That's black history in the making. Let's talk about it and let's keep making it.
And it's so interesting to me. OT and I were talking off air about how this person still has so much influence over what is going on, and they're not even in office.
And we talked about it, Nicole and I, over a couple of weeks ago, right? How certain people tried to build up Nikki Haley as an option, but we didn't see it, and the people didn't see it either. They never, they didn't.
She lost to none of the above in Nevada.
I know,
right?
I know, but
even with Trump not being on the ballot,
being on the ballot. So, where does his influence come from? Given Nicole's question, that even with the media trying to trump up another candidate, that didn't even work.
His power comes from two places: fear and hate. Fear and hate. He has conjured up the hate of those who are bitter with separatism, that are bitter with racism and xenophobia and all of the other isms that are out there. And he plays on that hate, and then he doubles down with fear. And that's what you have members of Congress who are afraid of him because he might come out and endorse their candidate, their opponent, even though they know he's wrong. And he incites the hate of people, and he plays it like a fiddle. And it's worked. And as I speak to Republicans and Democrats alike, I tell them, you got to wake up, because you can't let your soul be sold to someone who doesn't have a soul. And I'm convinced that this man doesn't have a soul. You can't love America or its people and be as divisive as you are. You can't love America or its people and do the things that you've done. And they're good Republicans and bad Republicans. They're good Democrats and bad Democrats. Here's the reality. We all have to be awake. And this whole notion that woke is a bad word, we have to recapture that. Woke is the absence of sleep. Why is that bad? Do you want us to be asleep? Do you want us to ignore reality? Do you want us to act as if everything is fine when we know it isn't? We may not always have the votes, but we always have our voice.
Yes. Congressman Troy Carter, TC.
All right. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to have to leave you now.
It's time for us to go too.
It's so nice.
Thoroughly enjoy our time together. I can hardly wait until next week, and look forward to being with you. Keep doing great work. God bless you. God bless WBOK.
And thank you for the sage advice, man. It's always good to have someone that I can tell people. There are a few people. The late Ken Carter's not with us anymore, but I can always call people like you and Jock and others who have some sense of the history of this town to get information for us. So